Hey everyone, welcome to my first devlog. These are the topics that are going to be covered in this order. The style of video that I decided to do was show a bunch of the coding, but sped up, and then kind of show me testing it in Unity and making sure it works. So the first item was the inventory UI. So I don't actually have the back end for the inventories working. So for this part, I'm just creating the UI for it. As you see there, that I was able to open the inventory using a key. That was the first step. Is to be able to open it using key presses. I chose E. That doesn't really matter. Um, I currently have a player input state machine, so I am adding or I'm creating a new state for when the inventory menu is open. That is so I can't really move around or look or do any unwanted actions while I'm in the inventory. But then again, for my gameplay state, I have to make sure that I add support for opening and opening the inventory. So you'll see me do that. Right there, I added some more key presses to close the inventory using the same key as before and the usual escape key because escape is usually used to close things. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm adding support to it for my gameplay input state, and let's see. Yeah, here I am being able to open the inventory. As you can see, nothing's showing. I haven't really created a UI for it yet. And there I go closing it. So I'm able to open and close it at the press of a key. So that's a big win. That's a good start. I'm pretty sure next I'll be working on creating the UI for it. Yeah, so I'm creating the inventory menu class that I will be throwing onto the inventory actual UI part. Here is where I would actually take in an inventory class, but like I said before, I don't actually have an inventory class yet. That'll be probably for a future video or future task. Yeah, so I just created a panel that I attached to it, and so the panel is what's being toggled on and off. Technically, that's the inventory UI that I have created. Here I am just, making it look better. I'm not going to say it looks good, but I'm going to say it does look better, or at least noticeable. Those are my inventory slots. I want to be able to space them and be able to add them. I did use a grid, I think a grid view layout, so that they're in a grid like and they kind of fit to the parent of their object or the parent space, which would be the red square. And I added a bunch of them. But I did run into an issue where every time I opened and closed it, it just created more. It didn't delete any old ones. So I decided to delete all the children, but my Unity ended up crashing because I always have trouble deleting all the children. So it's just looping, doing an infinite while loop. So that's on me. So I decided to create a list where I store the slots so when I create them, I just add it to that list and then I delete them. I know that's not the proper way. I do have object pool set up, so I will probably end up sometime down the line implementing the object pools for the inventory slots once I'm able to start filling them out and actually initializing them, giving them an image, maybe some text to describe the object and how many items are in it. And so I also wanted to constrain the number of items per row. So I did find a variable called constraint count. So there I go. I add 10 for the constraint. And then I also wanted to make it not, on the left top corner. So I did center them, and I think I give them a little bit of space. And that is all I'm going to do for that inventory UI. So the next item on the agenda was breaking trees. So currently, the player is only able to attack enemies. I did make them not able to attack towers and settlers on purpose. So the first thing I wanted to do was create a death class for when the tree runs out of health. Before I was eventually able to get it to attack, but the tree wasn't deleting. So I did end up getting that to work. As you see right here, the little damage points are kind of hidden in the tree, so I have to find some way to make that look a little bit better. Maybe add it on a layer in front of everything. I'm not sure how to do that. But I did end up getting this working pretty easily. The trees, I added them to a different layer called World, so that when I do a raycast for my attack, I am just looking at the enemies layer and the world layer. So that's how it goes. It doesn't attack the settlers or towers. The next thing, when I deleted or destroyed a tree, I wanted it to drop something. So in my tree death class, I just add a reference to an object. So when I destroy a tree, as you see here, that little cube pops up. But I, didn't add any physics to it, so it kind of just stood there where I deleted it. So I threw some rigid bodies, or a rigid body on it, but I accidentally threw the rigid body on all the trees. So as you see here, all the trees fall through, and that's obviously not what I wanted, and that was very unexpected. As you see, everyone makes mistakes, so I did end up going back, adding the rigid body to the actual drop, and threw in some constraints so it doesn't mess with it. And then, so as you see here, a little drop falls to the floor once you destroy a tree. The drop doesn't really do anything. Player can't actually pick it up. Eventually, I want them to, obviously. I just need to create a whole item system so the player could pick up it, and it has to do with an actual item. So the next thing I worked on was a sprint timer so that the player cannot continue sprinting forever. I do want them to have some type of stamina. I do have some player settings. As you see here, I am just sprinting for however long I feel like it. I'm on the top screen. The bottom screen is just a settler running into a tower. Don't worry about that. So in order to go around this, I in my player inputs class, where I kind of hold my current sprint state. So that's whether the player can be sprinting or is sprinting or isn't sprinting. And I just threw in some logic for being able to only sprint for a certain amount of time. I think I have it set to 5 seconds, which could be a lot depending on how fast you run. I did have to iterate over this a few times, but I did run into quite a bit issues, as you'll find out. So the first issue I had here, I was sprinting and I was still able to sprint forever. Why is that? We'll find out together. I forgot. So here I'm highlighting the debug I have for the time for sprinting. As you see, it keeps counting down below 0, which I don't want that. I want it to stay at 0, kind of clamp it from 0 to 5 or whatever the actual attributes are. So apparently I was doing that. I just wasn't setting the return value to anything. So when I run it here, it should stop at 0 when I stop sprinting, and it does. So that's perfect. And I think it maxes out at 5. But the other issue is that I don't have any recovery. So once I reach the max, it'll start declining, and then by that point it's already under the time necessary to sprint. So I just go back to sprinting. So I try to throw in some like sprint recovering, recharging, whatever you want to call it, and was running into that same issue where the recovery timer was going up, but it was going right back down. because of, like I said before, the sprint timer was reaching 5, and then as soon as it hits below, it's like, oh, you could sprint again, so it starts sprinting some more. So I threw in some logic, and see if I made it work this time. And it doesn't look like I fully made it work. It looked like I was still able to sprint, but the numbers are working. And that was the issue right there, was I didn't check to see if the player was recovering from sprint. So as you see here, once I hit that 5, it starts counting down and the recovery time starts going up. And I'm not able to sprint, as you can tell that I am hitting that sprint state button. When that is checked, that means I am holding that key down. So once it gets back down to, or I guess when the recovery time reaches 0 or 5, that means I'm able to sprint again. As you see, I'm able to sprint, and there you are. So the only issue with that is that, you know, the player could just kind of get close to 5 and just keep like letting it down, but I don't think that's an issue. Next thing I wanted to work on was create a small little UI bar for the sprint so that you could kind of see how far you are on the sprint. So I just created a sprint bar mono behavior so I could throw onto the UI to handle how everything looks. If you can't see, it's happening in the middle on the left, kind of where the health bar is. I threw in, basically copied the health bar to make it look the same size, made it blue, threw it under it, and it does go down because I added a sprint value 0 to 1 so that I could set the fill image. So when I sprint, it does that. What else I wanted to do was, while it's recharging, I kind of wanted some feedback to show that it is recharging and you're not really able to sprint. So I added some code in for that. I think I made it red. So once you hit that full sprint time, it'll start coming back. That wasn't working that time. I didn't set the color. So here you go. I see it running, and then as soon as I hit that, then it starts filling back up. I can't sprint, and it shows that you're kind of recovering. I also wanted to add a little bit of text to show that it's recovering as more of a, like, oh, what does that red bar mean? Because I'm sure most of this UI is going to change sometime down the line, but right now it is not. So I added this recovering text. I wanted to resize everything. I didn't like the way it was put in the script. I think I moved all the child stuff when I could have just moved all the parent stuff. So here's the final product, and then it hits recovering, and you are not able to sprint until it goes up. So that is the end of the first devlog. If you enjoyed it, if you found anything useful, if you would like me to talk about something a little bit more, leave a comment down below. I'll probably try to continue this series, especially if it gets some good feedback. I don't have, or I guess my next one I'll probably try to emphasize working on getting a working back into the inventory so that the player will able to pick things up and actually have an item system. That might take a little bit of research. I've done it before. I'm not always 100% sure if I like the way I did it, but anyways, thank you for watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe if you want to keep seeing more. Thank you.